In the early 2000s, a name struck fear into the hearts of South Africans, a name synonymous with one of the most notorious criminals in the country, a man who was able to evade capture for years and whose audacity knew no bounds. His name was Ananias Mathe, also known as the Hammer Killer or the South African Houdini. Who was he, and what led to his reign of terror? Born in the late 1970s in Malawi, Ananias Mathe's early life remains largely shrouded in mystery. But what we do know paints a picture of hardship, poverty, and a series of difficult circumstances that shaped the man he would become. Raised in a poor, broken home, Mathe moved to South Africa in the early 1990s. He quickly adapted to life in the city, but it wasn't long before he fell into a world of crime. For Mathe, it was a life of survival and escape from poverty that led him down a dangerous path. Mathe's first brushes with the law were minor, but as time went on, his crimes escalated into something far more sinister. He was known to commit petty theft, house burglaries, and even assault, but his crimes soon took a darker turn.
Roderick Charles Pringle still lives in the house in which he was attacked. His dogs were poisoned with aldicarb.
The incident happened, it was about 3:30 in the morning. So clearly he'd been around for a while because the barking happened about 1:30 or 2. He came through that window. He then helped himself to a laptop in the study. I sat up, bolt up in bed, and there was this little guy in my bedroom, and I used bad language at him and asked him what he thought he was doing in my bedroom at that time of the day and get the hell out of there, thinking I might scare him. Well, you clearly don't scare this guy because he never moved a muscle except lift the gun. And so I sort of put my hand out. I don't know what you expect to stop a bullet with a hand, but you do. Turned sort of half away from him and said, all right, take what you want and go. And the next thing happened, he pulled the trigger. The bullet went in here, just on my collarbone. And because I turned somewhat, it ricocheted off that into my shoulder. He'd already got the keys to the car in his hand at that point, and he jumped in the car. There was a Labrador and a Jack Russell. They were poisoned so comprehensively they didn't even have time to swallow the sausages that the poison was in.
By the early 2000s, Mathe was deep into violent crime. In 2002, he was linked to a string of violent armed robberies across South Africa. But it wasn't just his willingness to commit extreme violence that made him stand out. It was his brazen escape tactics. One officer even said, "We thought he was just another career criminal, but we were wrong. He had a plan and always a step ahead." Mathe's infamy reached new heights when he was caught and placed in Pretoria's infamous C-Max prison, a maximum security facility believed to be escape-proof. But Mathe was not your average prisoner. In 2006, he made a daring escape that seemed impossible. Using a combination of sheer cunning, ruthless violence, and incredible resourcefulness, Mathe managed to break out. He overpowered guards, used stolen keys, and made his way to freedom, leaving the authorities stunned. Parliament's Correctional Services Committee rejected a report in 2007 by an investigating team which included the former National Intelligence Police and prison officials that claimed Mathe had escaped by squeezing through the gap and running over the roof of the prison. According to Times Live, South Africa's most dangerous prisoner, Ananias Mathe, did not use Vaseline to slip out of the country's high-security prison. He walked out after paying a wardener 80,000 rand bribe. Escape sent shockwaves through the country. Authorities were left scrambling, and for the next several years, Mathe became a ghost, undetectable, unpredictable, and utterly dangerous. But behind the criminal mastermind, Mathe was also a father and a husband. Little is known about his family life, but it's clear that despite his violent nature, Mathe had close relationships with those he loved. A family member said, "He was a good father when he was around. I never knew the full extent of what he was doing, but he was always there for us when we needed him." Mathe's family painted a picture of a man who, despite his crimes, sought to protect and provide for those he loved. His dual life as both a criminal and a father highlighted the complexity of the man.
Ya rhandza ka tindera vana va ye va tshama na va libona nsati wa ku na mihi ni vamakwenu va koho ku hinkwavo va sumeriwe hi ni vana vamakwenu va ye lava nga faliseri hinkwavo va tenderiwe hi mali leswo ka nga ri ka kana loyi a tenderaka munhu a ni nga va gwa midexi ta khomiwe mani wo ndze ku qavanga nkama hinkwavo ni tinde ni tshama na ni dya mihloti ekwanti a ni pfuniwi hi sabawu a ni pfuniwi hi nchumu loko i nga livo va ni pfunaka ku na loyi a ni pfunaka mara ku na ku ni tshama na ni tshamaka swa swinene swo fana na mina le jele laha ni nga tshama kona.
Despite his devotion to his family, Mathe's life was inevitably defined by his crimes. His children in particular were caught in a whirlwind of his criminal behavior, both as victims of his absence and in some cases as unwilling accomplices. For years, Mathe remained at large, evading capture and leaving a trail of terror across the country. But in 2010, his reign of terror would come to a brutal end. Mathe's final days on the run were marked by desperation. On the 27th of October 2010, he was finally apprehended after an extensive manhunt. But even as he was arrested, Mathe's notorious reputation lived on. Captured after nearly 4 years on the run, Mathe's return to prison was a culmination of his violent spree. It marked the end of a chapter in South Africa's criminal history. But his escape, his crimes, left scars on the nation that would not easily fade. Ananias Mathe's name still evokes fear and fascination. He was more than just a criminal. He was a symbol of how a man's life could spiral out of control. From his humble beginnings in Malawi to his reign of terror in South Africa, Mathe's story serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of a broken system. His escape from prison, his violent crimes, and his role as a fugitive will forever be a part of South African criminal history. But behind the bloodshed and fear, there was also a story of a man trying to survive, albeit by violent and criminal means. Ananias Mathe, the South African Houdini, a criminal whose life continues to leave its mark on South Africa's criminal underworld, and a reminder of the thin line between survival and destruction.